Welcome to the Supply Chain Pioneers podcast, where we highlight industry leaders on the forefront of innovation and technology in planning, procurement, and logistics. Hosted by your supply chain pro to know, Ulf Venn.
Supply Chain Pioneers is powered by Everstream Analytics. Everstream gives you the predictive insights and analytics to make your supply chain faster, smarter, safer, and leaner. Go to everstream.ai to book your demo today. Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Supply Chain Pioneers. And with me today I have Nishith Rastogi, who is the founder and CEO of Locus.sh. Welcome, Nishith.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
Of course. So, Nishith, why don't you quickly introduce yourself as we always do on this fine podcast?
Thanks for having me here. I'm Nishith. I'm the founder and CEO at Locus.sh. I love building things and solving puzzles. Software happens to be one of them, but I love hardware. I'm building an AI pet for my daughter. I was blessed with one about 20 months back. I have a dog and I love spending time outside. In summers, I grow my own food and often go for a scuba session.
Oh, perfect. That's a great introduction. So today what we want to do is we want to quickly look at the history of yourself and how you became the CEO and founder of Locus.sh, but then also want to look at Locus.sh and the future. So let's get going. And the first thing I want to ask, you mentioned in your LinkedIn bio that you were programming already since childhood, right? 15 years before you started your professional career, you already were a programmer at heart, right? What steered your interest for the ones and the zeros?
My father is a psychiatrist who used to work at this advanced screening lab, and they had access to driving simulators back in 1992, 1993. And I was like a 5-year-old kid. So that was actually my whole first introduction to computers. And it was about driving simulators. For them, it was a training vehicle, but for me, it was games. And then, Sonic the Hedgehog came in. So effectively, video games is what like initially got me fascinated into it. But pretty early on, I got introduced to some basic shell programming and then the ability to create something of your own, right? Like that really got me hooked. Like I remember like the first time I made like this, 10-line calculator as a shell script. I really couldn't stop talking about it to my parents. And yeah, that happened to be my first love affair and it never stopped. And especially today, where, software as we know it is undergoing a tectonic shift. I think I'm as interested in building software as I was about 25 years back.
Yeah, amazing. I love that you mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog. I recently went on a retro craze and bought a Super Nintendo and an NES. So I was always more the Mario kid, but obviously Sonic was a great game.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's talk about the tectonic shift we're seeing, because it kind of lines up perfectly with your own career. Because in Amazon, your first stop in your professional career, you directly started in the field of AI, which is all the rage these days. So how was coding AI solutions in 2014 and how has it developed since then for today where everybody's talking about it?
Absolutely. So actually, since I entered the university campus, which was somewhere about 2006, 2007, machine learning, as it was more popularly called back then, was one of my more favorite things to get into. And natural language processing and part of speech word tagging were all the phrase, not really large language models. And since then, I've seen it evolve over two generations. And fundamentally speaking, about it more from an application standpoint rather than a technical standpoint of, what's the maths. Two big things that have happened, right? One, definitely the performance, right? Just the performance everywhere is better. But what it does is that now it's applicable over a much wider domain instead of a narrower domain, leading to, for the first time, AI and computers having humans on the other end. So if you look at all the machine learning and AI 10 years back, it was for computers to use by computers, right? So AI was on the back end. So your email spam filtering was the AI you would experience. Today, The AI is in the front end because a consumer, the end consumer, is interfacing with it. So now it's not just spam filtering, but it's email composing, right? 10 years back in supply chain, AI was about, machine learning was about price optimization over APIs. Today, AI is about procuring a vehicle from a vendor who doesn't have an API by making a phone call through an interactive voice system where somebody represents like a human and speaks in natural language to get you the truck, right? So those have been the trajectories that I've seen AI evolve, that where it's now applicable at a much wider thing. It has the human on the other end, and it's no more in the background, but it's more of a foreground task where every day you and I are interfacing with it.
Interesting. So, just asking as a follow up question, because a lot of people now that they directly work with AI, right, they have an inherent fear of getting replaced by AI quickly. What's your stance on that?
It's a question that the best of the minds are battling in the world with. But fundamentally, what I believe is, and if you dial back a bit, right, uh, the biggest industry in late 1700 and early 1800s was actually ice, right, moving large blocks of ice. In 1840, we had the refrigerator; it quickly vaporized. Then the biggest industry was firewood. Then the biggest industry in 1902 was whaling, right? Killing whales for their oil. Petroleum eliminated that industry practically in 2 years. Closer to us and closer in adjacency, we have seen that with film cameras, we have seen that, with our storage mediums. Large, big things, first of all, do become obsolete, right? So, first, we must accept that the reality will be different and the jobs will be different, and many of the jobs definitely will not exist. What my belief at the same time is that we are towards an era of growth, towards an era of abundance. So while the jobs will change, they will definitely exist aplenty. They will exist in different forms. They will exist where human connection is more critical. They will exist where planning and prioritization becomes important. They will exist in the areas of orchestration and management, right? So there used to be an American prisoner of war, Jim Stockdale, and he has a beautiful quote which goes about that you must have the absolute confidence that you will prevail, but the brutal discipline to confront reality. And I think the Stockdale paradox is an important technique to survive in today's world, where you must believe that you will survive, but you must be ready to change, because that definitely will happen.
Understood. Good. Great discussion. But let's move on to the next topic, which is the next stage of your career. So now you have been a developer at Amazon, a coder still at heart. So what made the coder in you decide to start a firm in logistics all of a sudden?
If you look at it, logistics is not really much different from code, right? It's about how a bunch of moving objects go through time and place based on certain constraints. So logistics is a lot mathematical. And the fact that it was very real world really made me attracted towards it, because your impact is very real. It's in the world. It's very tangible. You can touch and feel it, right? The edge cases make it even more interesting because as you solve one edge cases, you will discover another edge case, and making it as close to the real world, taking it from 95 to 99 to 99.9 and adding another 9, that which leads to like exponentially extra effort, and making that possible in code, that was really really exciting and truly impactful. So yeah, that's how I got into logistics and also stayed in it, and I will probably stay in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you developed a passion for the real world that is logistics. But let's talk about the edge cases because there are a couple of those in logistics. So if you think about when you entered the world of logistics and what you thought about logistics, what was your perception back then? And what realizations kicked in quickly?
So even as an outsider, I had a concept that while there will be a lot of impact of it, the business world, and how this is a very real thing, and it's not just like a dashboard somewhere. I think what I discovered once I entered the trade was also how human it is. That Once you make a delivery package deliver on time and the rider come back on time in the warehouse, it's not just about the number of deliveries you have made, but also that now rider can take like the evening local back and get to the home before his kids sleep. And this was a real thing that happened, that we went to this transportation company's warehouse, and one of the riders walked up to us and said that, hey, thanks to your software, I know now go back home, and after several years I truly know which class my kids is in, right? So when your packages get late, the package actually some consumer is waiting for. So that really changed the way we look at our software and logistics itself. We look at it now with much higher sense of accountability, right? And to also be the voice of the small guy in the system, to build that transparency. Yeah, so it was an absolute surprise to me that how much of logistics was outside numbers, trucks, and fuel.
Yeah. It is very human, which is good. I think
It
that's
is.
that's a very good thing.
Yes.
Okay. So you already hinted a little bit on the capability that Locus.sh has. So let's maybe talk about this a little bit more. So if you look at your product, right, it has a huge portfolio of things going on at the same time, right? You have fulfillment automation, dispatch planning, delivery orchestration, track and trace. So that's a very large portfolio, but I'm pretty sure when you started, it was a smaller use case, right? So can you maybe talk a little bit about the development, the initial thought behind Locus.sh, and then how it developed in over time?
The initial thought behind Locus.sh was that, can we automate all human decisions required to move any package or person between any 2 points on Earth, right? So as you can see, it's a bit of mouthful because we thought of it back in 2015 when we didn't know any marketing speak. But till this day, we have actually kept with that mission. We now fondly call it building a digital supply chain officer, or a DISCO, DISCO, right? But what we are trying to do over here is expand the scope of decision making. So when we started, we were only a hyper local last mile surface routing company. As the years have gone by, we have kept on removing the qualifiers. So we became a hyper-local and traditional routing company. Then we became routing, loading, and other decisions making. Then we started operating in last mile and first mile. And now recently, we have also gone beyond surface and have started operating in the domains of ocean and air.
Okay. So if you would describe your portfolio and the clients you serve,
So,
how would you go about that?
right. So as we morphed into from a last mile routing company into now effectively a full transport management system, we serve four key industries. We serve the CPG and FMCG world. We serve the transportation. We serve the traditional retailers and the modern e-commerces and quick commerce. In each of these industries, logistics become a key part of the cost of goods itself served, right? And for this, we offer the entire since the point of manufacturing. So if you break your logistics into four parts, which is procurement, manufacturing, distribution, and selling. We operate in the domain of distribution and selling, where right from the point of creation of finished good and the point of creation of an order, we take over the responsibility of the entire dispatch and distribution. Right. So as soon as your customer creates an order from any of the channels, be it the website, be it the mobile, be it the desktop, or a phone call, and it gets into your system, that's when we get activated. And then we will deliver that package through multiple hops, multiple legs, multiple channels, be it through your captive distribution, be it through an outsourced distribution, while maintaining a uniform customer experience for your end customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also pretty cool because the industries you serve, obviously in last mile, have a diverse supply chain with a lot of different stops and also huge volumes, right? So it's a very difficult thing to solve.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk about you because again, I started with, hey, you have been a coder since you're 5 years old and got interested in computers. and now you're the CEO of a company, right? So a lot of things also needed to change for yourself, right? Because coding something is a very different thing than leading a company and being the CEO. So how do you think your leadership style was influenced over time, and how would you describe your leadership style?
I think when I started, the first innings of my leadership predominantly was inspired from being a sports captain. So I was big into sports through my high school and uni years, and I picked up that style. And that style is a very personal style, high on motivation, high on emotions, definitely lead by example, is suited for chaos and wartime, but really doesn't scale beyond 10, 20, 30, right? Thankfully, through the last 10 years, you definitely go through near death experiences of the company, but you also go through spikes of, capital raises, big wins. You work with great clients who teach you, you work with great investors who teach you. And then there's definitely, the time as the best teacher. And through that you definitely evolve, where you start rewarding less, of being a cowboy at 3 a.m. to solve a crisis, and more about that, hey, you did something last week that ensured that there was no crisis tonight, right? You build an appreciation for calm and boring disciplined execution that you used to kind of shy away for every shiny disco ball early on. uh, you learn to build long-standing empathetic relationships. And then of course there are certain things, like leading by example, pride, exceptionalism, high integrity, which I don't think change over the years. They only get stronger and more embedded into everything that you do.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it a lot. But you talked about the highs and lows of a company
Wrong.
in as a startup, right? But let's talk about a high maybe, right? And I want to go back to last year, October 7th,
Yes.
because that's where Locus.sh shared an incredible news in their current journey, which sounded super exciting. So maybe do you want to share the news to the audience here and also give us a little bit more background to it?
Absolutely. So last October, we joined hands with Ingka Group, which is the investment arm of IKEA Corporation. As DIY builders, we found a great cultural match with IKEA, which is effectively synonymous with the whole DIY culture of things. It also provides us, long term, abundant, and patient capital to operate in perpetuity and really build out for a decade and more. This also allowed us to gain IKEA as a customer with which we now deploy our product globally and for a long, long time. And many of our team members are looking forward to the day when our kids go back to campus and they have this return to, campus IKEA hampers, and it's all getting shipped through Locus. So yeah, we now look forward to a world where we can provide better support to our existing customers, offer wider products to new customers, be available globally, and do that for a very, very long time in future.
And more trips to Sweden in summertime, adding family vacation.
Definitely. Sweden and Amsterdam, both of them. Yeah, Amsterdam is where, the digital offices sit.
Ah,
We
okay.
work out a lot. But yeah, the HQ, and IKEA has created like this beautiful, area around their headquarters. And yeah, visiting the IKEA museum, I had the chance to visit that recently and go through the history of the organization. And it's absolutely inspiring, to see the founders that started from such difficult environments and with such frugality to such a brilliant, high integrity scaled organization that they have created today. Absolutely inspiring to learn from.
Yeah. Also, leading by example, essentially, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Making frugality a thing that's part of the DNA of the company is good if you're trying to revolutionize the furniture industry, which they did. So it's yeah, I think it's a very cool history, cool story for. So it's great. I mean, you said it yourself, right? The DIY builders joined the right company. Perfect. Okay, Let's talk about, we talked about the past, now we talked about the history of not only your company, but also IKEA. Let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
And with that, I mean the future of Locus.sh and the future of logistics in general. What makes you excited for the future?
So I'll start from first future of Locus, and then I'll go on to the future of logistics. Locus is going through a very interesting transformation where we are, evolving our software platform from a software platform to a software factory, recognizing the fact that all our future enterprise clients would want 100% complete solutions and not 95% product solution, and being ready for the infinite agentic code, allowing features for them at the speed of light, but with the reliability of yesteryears. We're also looking to evolve from a software company to a software and hardware company over the years, right? Yeah, I'm always playing around with stuff, and we have like some robotics and in works, and we are aggressively working with some of our key clients in discovering those things. And moving on towards the logistics itself, see, logistics in addition to things like drones and the driverless robots, which will become like a big interface. Logistic in itself has now become the interface for brands, right? It is what defines the customer experience. So it is getting a completely different kind of attention. It's getting a completely different kind of focus. It's no more a cost center for the companies. It has actually become, an ability to differentiate, and it's becoming a core contributor to the center of innovation, how the customer experience is, how the throughput of the sales is. So yeah, logistics is an area remains extremely exciting, growing, and important.
Great. Okay, so we're down to the final question, the most exciting one. And I have a very simple question for you because you have such an exciting background. Can you pick one of the items out of your background and tell us how that fits to the logistics industry?
Absolutely. I would like to I would like to talk about this. It's
Yeah.
a pretty exciting thing. It's an axe, but it's also a gun, right? And it clocks. It's a replica of a functioning gun from the late 17th century, right? And as exciting as it looks, when you actually think about it, there was never a second one made. The reason it wasn't made again is because, it's not as good a gun. The recoil is horrible, and it's not as good as an axe, right? So often in software, two features can exist together, but the question we must ask is, should they exist together, right? So every novelty isn't useful. And yeah, novelty must not exist in production systems for the sake of novelty.
Yeah. And that's a good way to describe a lot of the logistics requirements you might face from a single customer that then might not fit to a lot of others. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So, Nishith, thank you so much for being here. This is the end of the podcast, but I thought it was very exciting. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time of speaking with me.
Of course. And for everybody who's still here, listening, watching, or however you're enjoying this podcast, I just want to say have a good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. And with that, bye-bye.
This was Supply Chain Pioneers. Thanks for watching, listening, or however you are enjoying this podcast. You can find Supply Chain Pioneers on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all other major podcast players, as well as on YouTube at Ulf Talk Supply Chain. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time.